What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler. I'm still at TIFF 2019, and I'm here to let you know that Motherless Brooklyn is no perfect movie. And it's written, directed by, and starring Edward Norton based on a popular 90s novel. It revolves around a detective with Tourette's in 1950s New York, who, because of his condition, which for those of you who don't know, Tourette's syndrome revolves around a lot of physical tics such as compulsive shaking or twitching, and a few vocal tics. Whenever you hear certain words, you feel the urge to spout out some random sentence that really doesn't make that much sense. And little things like that keep him from having friends or really a steady social life. But the things he's good at, like remembering people verbatim, is what gets him good work as a detective. Until his boss, who I'm not going to give away who it is in case you don't know, gets whacked. And when he starts investigating into what exactly his boss was investigating, he uncovers a larger conspiracy and several other clues that don't really seem to connect, but they revolve around this civil rights activist played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw. I tried my best on that one. Let me know in the comments if I got it wrong, please. Okay, so reasons I was excited for this movie. Edward Norton writes, directs, and stars in this. I love it when a director does that. It doesn't always work out, I will admit that, but lately for me, the last couple of examples, like Joel Edgerton writing, directing, and starring in Boy Erased. That was my favorite movie of 2018's TIFF. I like detective stories. I especially like 50s detective stories because there's a lack of technology. Detectives have to be quicker on their feet when they're investigating people or remembering clues. And regardless of what people are going to say about this movie, good or bad, when it gets a wider release, they can't deny the fact that the style of this movie is much more distinct from modern movie making. Edward Norton has clearly done his homework about how to shoot, score, structure, and write a 50s pulp noir story. All of the typical stylistic tropes that you would expect from a film noir are in this movie, and I really dug that. For starters, the cinematography is gorgeous and feels very distinct in terms of its shot choices compared to modern crime films. There are a lot of single shots where it's just two characters talking to each other, and Norton expects you to move your eyes back and forth to focus on each character when they have a big moment to say. There are some huge wide-angle shots of characters who just look like ants in terms of scope to show that they're completely alone on their quest for justice. There's some POV shots when characters get knocked down and threatened by the big evil force that's out to get them. The villain reveal especially, and I won't give away who the villain is either, the first scene that he's in, you only see him from his feet or from behind his back. You don't see his face until the big reveal. And that, especially for a film noir, is something that I love to see on the big screen. Because it acknowledges, regardless of whether you know the actor or not, that they are a presence to be intimidated by, to fear, and not to mess with at all. And those are feelings that you really should feel when you're watching a movie like this. And one thing that surprised me is that Edward Norton is pretty good at writing and performing narration, which was something I was worried about because a lot of crime movies feature stuff like this, and most of us just think that it's a lazy way of giving us exposition, but as I was watching this movie, it hit me. Detectives in crime movies usually are very lonely. They don't have much of a social life, and even in their professional life, they have very few associates. So, in these scenes, when he's narrating stuff to us, like his backstory, it made me realize he's not narrating this stuff just to explain relevant plot details to us, but because he, at that point, has nobody to share this information with. And Edward Norton does a very good job at portraying this underdog-like character, especially in a time where people like him wouldn't really succeed as much as he has. He makes it clear that he is a very lucky guy for getting to know his mentor. And it's interesting that the mentor, as things are revealed, as much as he respected and admired Norton's character, he made a lot of really crappy choices, and that his relationship was the main redeeming factor about him. But what surprised me and what really amazes me about Norton's character is that he has a very self-deprecating sense of humor about his condition, which is something that I can honestly relate to. There are so many times where I say something really stupid or awkward completely out of nowhere in a similar fashion to what Norton does, but not completely. And even when he's being stared down by people who can't stand the sight of him, who want him gone, making jokes about himself surprisingly lightens the tension and has people saying, "You're weird, but you're good. I like you." Gugu Mbatha-Raw is also really good as the civil rights lawyer who gets entangled with his investigation, and what you might think is about to happen as I'm saying that does happen, but it does feel natural because Norton takes his time with the personal side of the characters, not just the investigation, but the personal side. I was thinking about earlier detective stories like Chinatown or Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and how incredibly long they are and how there are a lot of complicated details, because people are going to complain about this when they see Motherless Brooklyn, but here's something I want to inform people about detective stories like this. There are a lot of political and corruption details that make the villains really seedy and not to be trustworthy. But here's the thing. In stories like these, it's the personal details that we're supposed to latch onto the most, and those were the details that made the most sense to me. When you do see it, it'll really come down to whether you like these characters or if you understand the villain's motivations, and in my case, I did. As I was walking out of the theater and walking down the street after seeing the movie, it occurred to me, and I knew this going in because people were complaining about it before they're even seeing it, that it's not going to work on everybody. As much as I praise the film noir style, there are some scenes that don't really take advantage of the things that make a film noir really atmospheric. Like, there are especially some shots in the beginning where characters are only portrayed through shadows. There are a lot of blinds and curtains, and I was really digging that stuff. And you don't really get it that often. There are much more scenes where everything is like perfectly lit and the costume and set designs are a little more flawless than they need to be. They all look great and they really fit the mood and the timeline. You definitely believe you're looking at the 1950s, but there are some moments that just seemed a little too polished for me personally, and I felt like there are some scenes that were much more mundane than they needed to be, and you could have had a few dimmer lighting cues that I felt could have helped a little bit. And the other issue is that there are some conversations that go by too quickly where you really have to pay laser focused attention, and if you forget anything for a split second, these are gonna really bug you until the very end of the movie. And a few times that did happen, mostly because there was some bitch in the front row who would not stop turning on her electric watch or something like that. I could go on and on about that, but I won't. Motherless Brooklyn is a slow burn, even though there are some conversations that fly by really quickly, but on the whole, this is a beautiful looking, well acted, and very intriguing 50s detective story that I hope to see more of these in the future, and I hope Ed Norton keeps directing more movies. He is a lot better at it than people give him credit for, and for that reason, I'm going to give Motherless Brooklyn a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. I have a couple on the side unrelated to TIFF that I want to work on, but if I do make any other TIFF reviews this week, it'll be for Lucy in the Sky with Natalie Portman and an animated feature called Number 7, Sherry Lane. Here's hoping this one works out better. So stay tuned for both of those. Be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my other reviews at noperfectmovie.com. And once again, thank you all very much for watching. Take care.